Day one of the mediation talks to end the ongoing doctors' strike has come to a close this evening at the KNCHR offices on Lenana Rd. The talks picked up from where they left off on Monday morning with Kagwiria Mbogori of KNCHR and John Ohanga, the co-chair, and senior officers from the Ministry of Health and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission CEO, who were also present at today's talks. Leila Mohammed brings us more details live from the venue of the talks, the CVS Plaza. Leila, what can you tell us?
Well, Victoria, like you have just said a moment ago, the meeting came to a close. We saw a flurry of activities outside the KNCHR offices here at CVS Plaza, where it was an entire day of meetings between KMPDU officials. This time round, Victoria, we saw the Principal Secretary, the Ministry of Health, Dr. Nicholas Mbogori, taking up his initial role as the team leader from that particular ministry to come back on the negotiating table and ensure that the current crisis that is being felt across the country needs actually to come to a close. We have seen the CEO of SRC, Ann Kiguta, Ann Gitao. She is here. She was here earlier. We saw Samuel Oroko, Dr. Samuel Oroko, the chairman of KMPDU, was also here. The KNCHR, who is hosting this particular discussions, is being led by Kagwiria Mbogori. She co-chairing this with John Ohanga from the LSK. These meetings are said to be continuing later into next week. It is expected that on Thursday, the 23rd of February, they will be able to have a report to take back to the Court of Appeal. Victoria.
And Leila, did you manage to speak to any of the union officials? Do they give you any information in terms of what they said? I know a lot of it is confidential, but what did they manage to say in terms of progress from today?
Victoria, today nobody's talking to the media. They're remaining hush-hush in terms of dealing with us. They're keeping us at bay. They're being very cordial and courteous with us. However, they're not disclosing anything. Probably they're taking the non-disclosure clause very seriously this time around. However, what we do know is that 90% of the CBA has been discussed. What they're doing now is they're picking up from where they left on Monday morning. The 10% that was under consideration, things to do with remuneration, training, and welfare of doctors is what is being discussed at the moment. This we know that probably could be keeping the team with late nights. However, it is expected that probably there is a light at the end of the tunnel with the LSK coming in and co-chairing with the KNCHR. They believe that at the end of the day, probably we shall see a deal. The doctors on their side, they're remaining mum, but when they left, we saw their body language. They were in a position to have cordial relations with Dr. Mbogori. We saw outside the building Dr. Samuel Oroko having discussions with Dr. Mbogori and actually seeing him off before he actually joined his colleagues as they left this particular building. So it is expected that probably sanity will prevail and the CBA will be agreed upon, and we will have doctors go back to work. That will be 80 days and counting, and many Kenyans who cannot afford the private medical care are really in need of these particular groups to come together and actually have a conclusion to this crisis. So we expect that when all these people who have come to the table, we have seen the SRC, the COG, the Ministry of Health, the LSK, the KNCHR, KMPDU, the AG, all of these particular parties who are requested to come on the negotiating table were here. They say they will not miss a beat. They're expected to discuss across the weekend. Saturday and Sunday is no exception. And we hope for better things to come next Thursday.
All right, Leila Mohammed, thank you so much. Give us an update of day one of the talks at CVS Plaza between the government and the doctors' union, of course, that being mediated by the KNCHR and LSK that just came in on those talks. A lot of elements here, legal, political, social, but hopefully that is all done away with to give regular Kenyans some reprieve